call this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners, October 26, 2021. It's a little past 1 o'clock. First thing on the agenda, the only thing on the agenda is we have adoption of the First American Rescue Plan. This is something I know that we've been working on with the council members for quite some time. We have an ordinance. We have to pass this in an ordinance. And why don't we go ahead and, Scott, you want to read the ordinance?
Yep, this is an ordinance ratifying Porter County's proposed investment of American Rescue Act funds planned for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Whereas Porter County was awarded a grant from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 in the amount of $33,096,066, half of which was received on May 25th, 2021 in the amount of $16,548,033. And the remaining balance is to be received in 2022. The act requires the grant recipient to adopt a plan, the plan in quotes, to distribute the grant funds. And whereas on June 8th, 2021, the fund for the receipt of the American Rescue Fund Act funds was adopted and implemented in Ordinance 21-11 by this board. Whereas Ordinance 21-11 stated the commissioner shall establish the plan, conditions, and rules subject to council appropriation. And whereas the county desires to adopt the initial proposed investment of American Rescue Plan Act funds up to $50,666,000 subject to amendment. And whereas the plan is attached here too as Exhibit A. And whereas the plan and the amended plan will be subject to future amendments approved by the Porter County Board of Commissioners as permitted by the Act. Now therefore be it ordained, established by the Board of Commissioners of Porter County, Indiana, the plan as seen on Exhibit A is ratified in its entirety in its full force and effect, along with the signature lines and the date of adoption. And then Exhibit A goes through the proposed sections, or excuse me, the corresponding segments that can be utilized for these funds. The first would be COVID response. We'll be responding to COVID-19. That is a category that would fit within the behavioral health, and that would be up to $25,000 for an initial mental health study. Mitigation and prevention, up to $785,000 for jury assembly room construction and furnishings. Information technology for jail, sheriff, and courts. Architect fees for space planning to mitigate or prevent COVID. The next section would be COVID response, responding to negative impacts, assistance to households and individuals and or assistance to small businesses and non-profits negatively impacted by COVID. Township government, up to $500,000 divided by population for assistance to households and individuals and or assistance to small businesses and nonprofits negatively impacted by COVID or any other allowed use under the American Rescue Plan Act. That would be for the township trustees. Porter County redevelopment, up to $1 million for the assistance to small businesses in South Haven and the South Haven SHIP potential TIF. Assistance to still under COVID response, responding to negative impacts, assistance to impacted industries, including tourism and outdoor activities, up to $2.5 million for the completion of the Marquette Trail, up to $5.5 million for upgrades, including restrooms and flexible open space for patrons and employees to allow for social spacing at the Memorial Opera House, up to $150,000 for building upgrades at the Indiana Dunes Welcome Center. Premium pay is another avenue or another bucket, up to $1.2 million for eligible employees. Each employee would be eligible for up to $4,000 in premium pay. Infrastructure, Porter County Stormwater Management Board, up to $4 million for critical stormwater infrastructure projects, including Stimson Drain and Shorewood Drainage System. This would be our initial plan. It's subject to amendment, and it also leaves approximately $17.5 million of funds yet to be determined or in reserve. And that is the proposed ordinance.
Okay. All right. We have to, so then we vote on this, and then it goes to the council?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
When was this list of projects made and by whom made them?
We've been talking about it, and Scott and I sat at that table the other day and wrote it all down finally. Before that, it hadn't been in writing. You came in, as a matter of fact,
I came in where?
to the room, the side chambers where Scott and I were sitting at the table working on it.
I had no idea what you were working. The meeting with
But it came out to.
Councilman Rivas and Councilman
Mhm.
Jessup.
Yes.
Well, it's, you know, as a fellow commissioner, and to, you know, to learn that, you know, this board is on the precipice of passing an ordinance, or a, what do we got there, Scott?
An ordinance?
Ordinance,
Yes.
you know, that's going to cash out at over $15 million on different projects, and not have any, you know, any benefit of input on making that. And I'm not the only one. I've talked to some council people as well, and they're not aware of any list. That to me is very concerning. And Laura, you and I talked, you were kind
have an
enough to call me
email.
yesterday. And we talked a bit about the list, and I told you I had reservations about spending $5.5 million on the Opera House, on a building that does not service, does not let any of our county services out of that building, a building that is restricted use to the public. And quite honestly, I mean, you walk into this building today, and on our front door, we have notices about wearing masks and COVID, and notices from the State Department of Health, you know, as far as our rating of COVID level. And just, I mean, 2 weeks ago, you had to wear a mask to get into this building. And we got our school districts fighting tooth and nail with parents over wearing a mask with their children. And we're gonna spend $5.5 million in a building that holds plays.
I'm not sure how that directly would impact school boards making decisions to mask their
Because
children.
I think it sends mixed messages, Laura. That money was appropriated by the federal government to combat the
So do you want us to buy
pandemic.
masks?
Was to fight the pandemic.
Well, first of all, Jim, the
Including-
5.5 million on the Opera House it's an approved use for the money, so just,
Well,
it's not that we're using
well,
money that we shouldn't be. I just wanted to make that clear. I'm not debating,
Okay.
I'm not debating with you. I'm just saying that it is an approved use. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, but I certainly think that definition is debatable. And again, I think that county government receiving, you know, roughly $33 million in American Rescue Act planned funds and spending it on the Opera House sends mixed messages to the public about how serious is this pandemic? And how serious are we taking it? I didn't see anything on the list that was provided to me, for anything for the likelihood of a second outbreak. And I would think that that would be the very first thing on that list.
Well, one of the things that's not permitted is a rainy day fund. So I'm not sure what we would do. I mean, short of,
Well, I think that, and I understand that, and I respect that response, but that is exactly why there should have been public discussion with both boards on what options we had here and how all of us, including the public invited, how they wanted this money spent.
Well, this is far from all of it.
I know. That's all I have to say.
Jim, I know for a fact, I've told you several times that I've been working on this, and not once did you ever come up to me and say, can I be included? What's going on? Whatever. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but this is where we're putting this out there for the debate, which we're having now.
In a public meeting.
And then it's gotta go to the
Well,
council yet too.
Yeah, well,
so-
Jeff, in response to that, I have no recollection you telling me you're working on
Of course
this.
you don't.
And I would certainly think that that would have been an announcement made at this meeting, at a public meeting, a commissioners meeting, that we were gathering information to make a list of projects. Nowhere in our minutes will you find that. In this day and age, and with, the amount of money that we put into technology and our website and these, this microphone system, our meetings, our paychecks, I don't understand why there wasn't public discussion on this. 30 minutes before the meeting, I get a copy of the ordinance to read. It's inexcusable. But I'll be a bad guy, I'll be a bad guy. That's all I have to say.
Sure. Okay.
Well, just to be clear, this money has been out there, and we knew we were gonna be doing this for a long time. I mean, I've been thinking about it.
So have I.
I wish you would've responded to the email then.
Responded to what he.
If you had something else you wanted on the list. Plus, we have $17.5 million to work through.
I spoke to you, and I also spoke to Scott.
But the only thing we talked about that you wanted to add was the prevention, which I looked into, and I tried to call you twice this morning. And, you must have been busy, but we can't do a rainy day fund.
I've said what I felt I needed to say.
Public, you gotta open up for public hearing.
What's that?
Gotta open up for public hearing. Ordinance.
Well, right now?
Whenever you're ready, before we're done, before we vote.
Oh, okay. So we have to do a public hearing then? Okay, so we're gonna open up a public hearing right now and give anybody the opportunity to speak with regards to this rescue plan. And if you wanna come forward, give your name, your address. There's a microphone here, and there's a microphone there, and we got them streaming. So come forward. What's that right there? She's giving you a thumbs up.
I'm tall. Okay, yeah, I was concerned about a couple of things, and I do,
Ma'am, can you just let me know what your name is? I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry.
Name and address,
Thank
please.
you.
It's Penny Kuzmic, and I live at 258 Haas Street in Valparaiso.
Thank you.
And anyway, I was concerned about why none of this money is, so far, whatever has been received, has gone into any kind of air filtration systems in the schools. I mean, there's some really good,
Ma'am, the school corporation got their own money for ARP, and if they need to do that in the schools, that's up to them to do in the schools. We
Okay.
do not have control over the HVAC systems in the schools, okay?
okay,
And the school corporations themselves also got an allotment of this American Rescue Plan funds.
Mm-hmm.
So each individual school corporation received money, just like the
Okay.
city of Valparaiso or the city of Portage or Porter County.
Okay. Well, until recently, I was under the assumption that every school system, that that they were basically elected. But it's come to my attention that in Valpo, they're appointed by you guys?
No, by the city council.
The city
and
council,
the,
okay.
There's one appointment from the
Okay,
Center
so-
Township trustee.
Okay, so who makes those decisions as to whether or not,
The school board.
okay, and they're
Of that-
appointed?
Of that, well, some are elected.
I know,
Well, no.
Dunes is elected, correct, and Valpo is
Is
appointed.
by
Okay,
the
so
Valpo
who's
City.
responsible, you appoint them and then you're not responsible anymore? I mean,
We don't appoint them.
The
no,
Valpo-
you don't, but,
The Valparaiso City Council appoints, and
Mhm.
the Center in the Center Township trustee appoints.
mhm,
And then once those appointments are made, those individuals are responsible. They're sitting on the school board, they're the ones responsible for making those decisions.
okay, and who are they responsible to?
Their appointing authority, so either the Valparaiso City Council or the Center Township trustee.
Okay, so I mean, it does kind of come back on the city as to those decisions, okay? Is there any way for a citizen of the city to have any input on that actually coming to pass in Valparaiso?
That would be.
I mean, it seems like it's getting kind of lost in the little loop there, if you don't mind my saying so.
No, that's
I
fine.
mean, nobody seems to be responsible, and all of a sudden, I mean, there's a lot of people who have something to say about this, and it seems a little difficult to actually get it to who would be the deciding factor, and even getting them to listen to, other people's thoughts. Because basically, the way this all works is that the people in elected positions are in fact elected by the people, so they need to be always open to what prevailing thought is, and not just personal thought, but the thought of the people that reside in those cities, so.
The individual school board meetings would be the proper place.
Ooh, it's getting interesting, yeah. I mean, I've, as you can tell, I'm older, and I have seen a lot. To be honest with you, the reception is not what I would have expected, to be honest with you, from my past experience. We'll get some problems here. Okay, second concern I had was when this money is received, I mean, it's federal monies, which basically federal monies are monies that we pay in taxes to the federal government, because they do not in fact have any funds other than what they borrow or what we provide for them through taxes. So when these federal monies are taken, what stipulations can we see, and can I get a copy of that actually, of what they expect if you take the money? Because it's come to my attention that they have strings attached to a lot of these monies where you're required to do certain things if you take the money. So is there a way I can get a copy of what is required?
This is our auditor, Vicki Urbanek. She's researched this thoroughly.
Yeah.
In terms of accountability, the U.S. Treasury is requiring all recipients to report on a regular basis in terms of what their allocations are, what their plans are, and then what they've actually expended. And I don't know right now what the Treasury plans to do in terms of making those reports public. I think they're still working on that. But we're to report on a quarterly basis. And our first report is due, they just changed the deadline. Our first report is due at January 31st. That will cover for the first year through December 31st. We had to already file an interim report, but as you know, the commissioners just passed the plan just now, and it's only a partial plan subject to amendment as needed. So our interim report really didn't say much, but that was the norm for most counties. But going forward, every quarter, we have to file a report. that shows what we are proposing and what has actually been expended. Not a single penny of this money can be spent until it is approved by the county council in an open meeting. And then the normal claims have to go through the auditor's office. And so there will be accountability in that method. In addition, all of these funds will be audited. And so let's say that none of this money is spent until 2022, then it will be under audit in 2023. If it is determined that any of these uses were improper, the county will have to pay back the funds.
All right.
So there's a lot of accountability, but it's very, very early in the process right now.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, it's good to know that they're keeping track of the money. It's not just going to disappear somewhere. My concern was that being the American Rescue Plan attached to the whole COVID issue, that, and I would just like to know if this can be like documented in any way. If you receive this money, do you have to agree to federal mandates of any kind, concerning masking, vaccination, and otherwise? If that's attached to it, I would like to know. And I know there's documentation out there, and I'd like to have a copy of that, if you could get that for me. Because I know they're not just giving you federal monies. This is the American Rescue Plan attached by legislation to the whole COVID situation. So it's a lot deeper than just, here's some money, hopefully you can get some things fixed in the county, okay? And like I said, I'm older, and I have never seen the situation like it is now. So I have concerns, and I'm not a person, anybody that knows me knows I'm not a person to basically get up and have a concern just out of thin air. So this is a legitimate question I'm asking. So, and if you aren't aware that it needs to be looked into, you need to look into it.
Well, we've all read the plan, and it's not
No.
part of the plan.
Well, what they're asking for you to do, you're aware of, but are you understanding what they might be asking you to comply with? I'd like to know if it's attached to this, so if you can look into that, I'd appreciate it. And then I did have one more issue. I have a house in town. It's one of the oldest ones, built in 1854, okay? I'm at the end of the sewer line, on a hill. So it actually starts down at the bottom of the hill and comes up the street. And I still have trouble with my basement flooding. And it's not the gutters, okay? It comes up through the sewer thing. So I was a little concerned that a whole lot of money is going to Shorewood. I didn't even know they were within the city limits. Are they? I mean, how does that
They're in
happen?
the county.
Yeah, they're,
So this is
Are you in the
county.
city?
I'm in the city.
Well, the sewer has nothing to do with us. That's the city of
Well,
Valparaiso.
I could have sworn you said stormwater,
right.
because my problem is a stormwater problem.
We're taking care of the stormwater in unincorporated Porter County.
Okay.
Not the city of Valparaiso.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the
And
city
they
of
have their
Valparaiso.
own,
Well,
federal money.
Valparaiso is in the city, in
But
Porter
it
County.
doesn't go with the funds that the county got from the federal government. Those
Oh.
monies came to unincorporated Porter County to be spent in unincorporated Porter County.
Well, then how is,
And the city of Valparaiso also got their own funds to be spent only in
okay.
incorporated
So what's,
Valparaiso.
how is the,
So you would go to Valpo's meeting to go complain
well,
about
we
your.
just talked about I could have sworn we talked about the Opera House. Isn't that in
But
Valparaiso?
it's a county asset that we own.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just Valparaiso, okay, so it's a
Correct.
county, okay.
All of unincorporated Porter County.
All right, well, good.
So all the incorporated cities, Porter.
What was a legitimate
Valparaiso,
question, if you don't mind?
Chesterton, Porter, they all got funds, just like the schools got funds.
Mhm.
And then everybody has to spend their funds, not only pursuant to the plan, but within
Their district.
their district or their school corp or their incorporated limits.
Which makes sense, because we
Yeah,
don't really
right,
know
right.
much
Well-
about the issues of the school or
Well,
what's going on.
well-
City
with
sewers or.
Well, I know that one of the commissioners is for Valparaiso, is it not?
Well, it's the
Center
center of the
district.
county.
Okay, and who is that?
That would be me.
That's what I thought.
Well, I know you know.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I know, that's what I
So
thought too.
you can't say Valpo is kind of off the, but I understand what you're saying.
We're
So
dealing
clarify.
with fixed pots of money, ma'am. We can't go,
No, I understand the fixed pots, and I just was gonna say, I would like to see some of the fixed pots going to air filtration systems and other manners of dealing with, and if you look into the science on it, it's quite qualified. And it's something you should be thinking about with the money rather than.
we just did a $30 million capital plan on 6 of our buildings, and all of them had upgraded HVAC systems put in them.
Okay, but
So,
not,
and I
nothing
know
for
the
the,
jail is out there looming, and that's the next one we need to do, but that's another big pot of money.
Okay.
And that's down the road a little bit. We
Right.
still have a bond that's still due for another 2 years yet, but that'll be the next thing that gets done out there, because we did have that issue out there in some of the inmates in the cells because they were so close together, and,
Right.
and it's a 25-year-old HVAC system, so that is on the register to do when that time comes.
okay, and is the time coming to deal with the schools? I mean, you've done all these buildings
We
and
have
maybe the
nothing to do
jail.
with the schools, ma'am. We don't make
You don't.
decisions on the schools.
Okay. No, I didn't say you
I
didn't
ran
make the
as a
decision.
commissioner, I didn't run as a board member of a school corporation. So that's the difference.
The schools aren't under our purview. We don't maintain their buildings
Okay.
or,
All right, wrong situation. Okay, all right, thank
And-
you.
and okay, thank you.
Well, if you have any more information,
No.
I'm all into knowing what's going on.
Yeah, the school's got a pot of money. I think Valparaiso School Corp. and Portage School Corp., I think got comparable to what the county actually received.
Mhm.
So they have their own pot of money, and then they're in control of those buildings. So they're the ones best situated to
Okay.
handle it.
All right, I'll go talk to
I know
them.
Valpo just redid all their schools, and I'm sure
I
that-
know, you would.
I would think that that was all in there. I've not
Well,
heard that being a problem,
not the
but
kind of air filtration, they probably wouldn't have spent the money on that. I know when my children were in high school, and they had just remodeled, my son would come home and head for the bathroom, and I'm like, well, how come you're not going at school, right? And he said, because there's no doors on the boys' bathrooms, toilets.
Installs.
You know? And, I mean, it's one thing to use a urinal, it's another thing to sit on the pot. And,
It's a good thing we had a upgrade at the school.
yeah, I know that, I asked recently, did they ever do something about that? And they have, so, yeah. But, I mean, at that time, it was
That's a
like,
positive.
okay, all right, thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? Open season. She's got her phone down now.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey,
I'm Dawn, I live here in Valpo. Care not to give my complete address if that's okay. Last name's Hilma. I was just curious about two things, I guess. The money that you're talking about, the $5 million going towards Opera House. And how much money did the schools receive? How much money is going to our school system?
I'm not responsible for
No,
this.
I understand that, but you did mention that when you were speaking to her, that
I could
money
look it
that
up.
was allocated.
I'd have to, let me see if I can find it.
Been in the papers, it's been all over.
I mean, I'm pretty
It was
good
like a year
at
ago
all
when it
these
came out.
Events, so
It was,
just
it was close to a year ago when it all
questions I
came
could
out, wasn't
ask
it, Doug? It
and
was
not be dismissed.
quite a while ago. And I would also like to point out too, the Memorial Opera House also is in dire need of HVAC system, because that system in that building is not very good at all. It's
Our
probably the
kids
worst one we
need to get
have.
out of the mask in dire need too, so we're on the same, with that kind of thing.
I'm just pointing something out, ma'am, that's all. Wow.
Just pointing mine out too.
Find it.
Yep. Duneland School Corp. got 3.8 million. Discovery Charter School got $345,000. East Porter County School Corp. got $1,421,000. Boone Township School got $831,000. New Vistas High School got $257,000. These aren't exact numbers, but
No, that's fine.
Portage School Corporation got $11,318,000.
I'm sorry, that was 11,000,000.
318. Porter Township School Corp. got $760,000. Union Township School got $714,000. Valparaiso Community Schools got $4,452,000 for the school corps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Robin Lane, 768 Ravinia Drive, Valparaiso, Indiana. I saw that there is 5 million allotted for a mental health study. What does that actually entail?
It's $25,000
Oh.
for the initial mental health behavioral study.
So what does that actually entail?
Jim, you might want to speak to that, because that was something you wanted,
It's,
even though you didn't see the plan.
The mental health study is, we've been talking about the last couple commissioners meetings, is to go out, and at this point, it's gonna be focused on looking at the suicide issue from stem to stern, as far as what it is here, how we relate to other communities, and what we're doing, and what could potentially be better in that arena.
Okay, and are you guys doing anything for like I mean the elderly community? I work home health. I'm a nurse, obviously, and with education on, I mean, there's a lot of preventative measures for just sickness in general for elderly people that a lot of people aren't aware of, and also in regards to taking their meds, their diet, you know, staying active and having the right equipment for doing, you know, getting around, and also making their appointments. And a lot of these people aren't having those needs met from what I've seen. And with that money, I just think that there's a lot of issues in that area that could be addressed. I mean, considering our large part of our community is the elderly people over the age of 50, and those are the highest risks that are being affected by COVID. So I don't know what you guys can do to include that in your plan, but that would be a lot more beneficial than, you know, servicing the Opera House, in my opinion.
I think part of that money was to do, that's why we started with the $500,000 of the township trustees, because I think everyone felt
For
that
relief.
they were most uniquely situated around the county, knowing exactly what their townships were in need of, and so this was the, again, the first plan to put money, to them by population, so that they have their first, go-around of money to see what they can attack, whether it's
I mean,
an
I get what
elderly
you're saying.
issue or
but,
homeless or food bank.
I mean, a lot of that, I mean, there's more involved in that. I mean, because I mean, if you're taking care of people in that aspect, then you're decreasing the amount of people being hospitalized, which is putting strain on the hospital locally, and also on the other, you know, areas of the community that are strained with like doctor's offices. I'm just saying, you know, if some of these areas, and again, I'm just, I mean, this is a large amount of money. I mean, millions and millions of dollars. And I just am seeing so many elderly people that are being neglected these days, that aren't getting the care they need and don't have the services available to them that insurance doesn't pay for. And if there's any way that we could find a way to put that money towards them to help prevent some of these other issues that are arising, I mean, that would be something that I can guarantee everyone would probably be on board with.
Okay. And there's, this is the first of probably many plans, and there's,
I mean, I'm more than welcome to be, you know, able to get involved in, you know, come in from a nursing aspect or anybody else that I know that's seeing things on the front line, because, you know, there's a lot of things that I see that obviously other people don't.
You sound to me like you'd be a good candidate for the health department board seat when it comes open, because there is qualifications for that, and one being a nurse. So, just throwing it out there. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I mean, I'm just trying to be, I just want these people to get taken care of, and if there's a money that's being given to us for COVID and, the relief aspect of it, then it needs to be addressed,
We would
because,
have to go back, look at the plan, look at this particular item, if it's in the plan.
Right.
And then we would have to see how it would have to go out. Usually they want some type of formal recipient of that money.
Right.
That can disperse it out. And that's sort of what we would have to go back and look at the plan and see that area of, the plan's very thick.
I figured, and that's why I'm like, just putting it out there, and then like, you guys are more than welcome, like I said, when we have, it sounds like this isn't the end. But if it's not in there, if they could try and figure out a way to include it and use more than of the money for that, then, I mean, I'm not saying mental health study is not a good idea as well, but there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot going on with other aspects as well that haven't been addressed.
I would like to point out, and that doesn't supersede what you're saying, but the health department has gone into a lot of the nursing homes, and they've done some education and vaccinations and some other.
Well, I'm specifically talking about homes, people's homes, because most elderly people are
Home health care.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're the ones that, and home health doesn't actually do quite enough. There's not, insurance doesn't pay for enough.
It's an unregulated
Correct.
industry.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so a lot of people go without,
Right.
and, those are the people that need it the most, actually. Because, you work your whole life, and then you retire, and you're not really entitled, unfortunately, because you worked your whole life, to a lot of things. And you don't really realize it until after the fact. So, like I said, that would be my request from my point of view. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.
Anybody else? Public hearing is now closed. Reconvene the commissioners' meeting. So what do we want to do?
I will make a motion to approve this plan, the ordinance.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. Can we do a roll call, Vicki?
Certainly. Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Blaney,
Yes.
Commissioner Biggs. No. 2-1.
Thank you. All right, that was the only thing we had on this agenda, so with that, this board stands in recess. Thank you.